Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are finally back. Not when I expected to be back, but we're back. Right, basically, what happened was I started this bike a good 4 or 5 months ago. It was toward the end of summer, but it was probably one of the most important bikes I've ever restored. It also needed probably the most work. And the problem was I had another BMX restoration going at the time, and I was building myself my second road bike. I'll get onto those one day. And yeah, it was a lot of work, a lot of painting, a lot of stuff that relies on the weather. And then by the time I sort of stopped and looked around, the summer was over and the skies were grey, and that was that. So I was trying then to wait for a bright sunny day to take photos of the bike, but obviously that depends on me being with the bike where the bike is and it being sunny, and that hasn't happened. And then I got COVID and was sick for 5 weeks, and then I went over to my mother's after being indoors for 5 weeks and caught something else, a cold or the flu, and then was sick for another 2 or 3 weeks. So I've only really been better now for about 2 weeks, and obviously it's Christmas coming up, and therefore I've had an awful lot to do to get ready for it and everything else. Anyway, what I've done is I've found time today, bit of downtime, and they're not going to be the best photographs I've ever put on this channel. They are the ones that I got of the bike as I was working on it and as I was finishing it, but they're not like glory photos in parentheses. They're just photographs of the bike sitting on a stand in the house. Now this video might go on a bit because, like I said, this was a very important bike to me, and it's also a bit of a celebration of the bike and of me. So basically it's a 1999 Mongoose Super Goose. The reason I know this is because it used to be pearl white. They only made it in this colour, called a Super Goose like this, for 1 year. And then they renamed it into the SGX and changed the colour scheme and blah, 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 blah. But basically, yes, in 1999... Mongoose turned 25 years. So this was their 25-year anniversary Super Goose. The funny thing is, in 1999, I turned 25, and me and said Super Goose both turned 50 this year. So like I said, it was a very important bike to me. I never owned an actual Super Goose. I had an SGX. I think it was a 2001, and I'll get onto that in a bit. So yeah, sit back, look through the photographs. You'll notice again, the format is different. You're going to see, you know, all of the shitty pics of the bike before I bought it, when I got it, the work that I did to it, the restoration, the paint job, and all of the other stuff. So it's going to, like I say, quite a long video, longer than normal, with a lot more information in it than normal, because it was a lot of work and because of the significance of it. So basically, in 1997, I was working in a computer shop in London, and we, at the time, used to hold email servers for the local schools. We had a service contract with the local schools to maintain all of their PCs and run their email servers from our shop. So we were more than just a computer shop. We used to do an awful lot there. Therefore, that meant that I was sort of sat in front of computers all day with a very fast internet connection for the time. I think it was called ISDN, and it was 2 to 3 times faster than any dial-up. So, yeah, it was kind of good but kind of boring. And why is this all going? Well, I met my first wife over the internet. So I met her in 1998. We did the long distance thing for a couple of years, and then in 2000 she flew over to England and stayed there for 3 months. I then went back at the end of 2000 for 3 months and came back again in January of 2001, where I started the marriage visa, the fiance K1 or whatever it's called, and by the October of 2001, I had moved to America sort of permanently. We got married about a month later. I think it was like December of 2001. And then we split up in 2006 and I came back in 2008. But that's all by the by. Anyway, when I moved out there in the October, there was a local bike shop to me, and I went and sold off my Midschool BMXs that I'd been riding, like, you know, freestyle and street and all this stuff. And he said to me, "Oh, I've got an old PK Ripper in the basement. Do you want to take a look at it?" So I said, "Yeah, go on then." Well, it turned out to be a new old stock 1984 gold PK Ripper with a new old stock gold landing gear and the new old stock SE bars, SE seat post, blah, 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 blah. So I bought it off him for £300, which I thought was okay. Little did I realise that it was probably worth 10 times that, even then. Flew it out to America. Got there that October. Like I said, the weather was absolutely beautiful. Mid to high 80s, which for an Englishman is like a very hot summer. Threw the bike together because I was desperate to ride because I hadn't ridden in months because of all this emigration and blah, blah, blah. And took it up the driveway onto the main road and the chain snapped and I had a really bad accident. Basically, I was at the time very fit, very strong and still quite young. I was going as fast as my legs could go and the chain snapped and jammed the back wheel and the bike came to a stop and I didn't. So I immediately flew over the handlebars. My first instinct was put your elbows over your face and I landed full 14 stone, which is 14 times 13.5 pounds on my right elbow, which exploded. And I then had to have 2 lots of surgery to fix it. So that sort of took me out of the game and I stopped riding for about a year. I mean, it took a good 6 to 8 months for all this surgery and that to heal. I had to have a skin graft on my elbow because there was no skin there. And blah, 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 blah. And then my ex said, "Well, you know, do you want another bike?" And I said, "Yeah," because we were living on a farm. Like with plenty of land. I couldn't work at the time because I was still doing all the visa stuff, which all went wrong because of 9/11. So it took 3-4 years for me to get a work permit. So she bought me this SGX and I'll be honest, I got on it and I just started shaking. That crash really, really scared me. And it's hilarious of all the dumb shit that I used to do on my Midschool bikes when I was riding street and stuff. All I was doing was riding very fast and it was by far and away the worst injury I've ever had. So I didn't ride it for a while. It sat in her garage looking lovely. It was the copper one with the engine turning. And then a few months later I started taking it up and down the drive, started to grow in confidence again, dug myself some jumps. And yeah, and spent all of the summer of 2002 jumping dirt jumps, which was great fun. Then I got my license to get a permit to drive. So I sold the bike and sold my Xbox and God knows what else and bought a car. And then I didn't ride again until about 2009. So yeah, so that was the end of the Midschool for me. I don't know what happened in between then because my life was going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And yeah, basically until I got back to England, I didn't even think about BMX bikes. And then I started collecting again and collecting Midschool stuff in about 2013. So yeah, so I'd been out of it a long time. And that was all that. So for this bike, I was on Facebook one day on the Midschool BMX Life group or whatever it's called. Something like that. I've just had a brain fart. And somebody offered up the frame for £30, which I thought was ridiculous. So I offered him a little bit more. I basically I think I paid about £45 for it shipped, which again to me was very cheap. I suppose because I was looking for it, and they're not a hugely popular bike, but I can tell you now they're absolutely bloody brilliant on dirt jumps. So yeah, bought the frame. It came with a seat clamp, but the Mongoose logo had rubbed off. It had the wrong cranks on it that were also C solid. At which point I removed said cranks with a lot of heat and a very large hammer, and started to have thoughts of what I wanted to do with it. Now, in my attic, I had a set of late Midschool landing gears, but these are the freestyle version with the lugs on, the 990 lugs, and a welded in crown race star nut thing, you know what I mean. And obviously that's no good. So I ground off the lugs, drilled out the star nut so that I could put either a regular star nut in there or what I ended up using, which was a headlock. You'll see that in the photographs. And then decided that I was going to go resto mod. So instead of using, I mean, I've got plenty of Midschool parts. I've got a couple of bikes I could have stripped. I decided that I wasn't going to do that. After completing my absolutely killer GT race bike, which was the last video on the channel, I decided I was going to do a resto mod, only I was going to step it up to basically the bleeding edge of new school stuff, right? Now, thankfully, again, because I only stopped riding in about 2020, I still potter around on them, I don't do much, but I'm well up on my modern parts, and obviously because I've built a modern race bike, I know a lot about modern race parts, and I also know that Snafu and Box make the best of the modern parts. So I'll run you through the parts now. Obviously we've got the frame. Now that frame has been painted with something called Chroma Coat Blue, which is made by a company called Custom Cans or Custom Paints, depending whether you buy it in cans or by the gallon or whatnot. Now this is a very special paint because obviously it's a flip, but it sort of goes from blue, and then when you catch it in a funny light it will turn sort of a bronzy orange, and then when you expose it to bright light it turns pink. So that was a bit of a tall order, but I decided to have fun with it. So obviously we've got the landing gears. They've been fully converted back to a race fork. The bars are Snafu Illingworth, which again are Snafu's sort of highest end tapered crossbar, butted, blah 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 bars. They're basically the same as the Scotty Cramner bars on my GT, they're just wider. Scotty basically took those bars, cut them down a bit, and then that was his signature bar. So yeah, Illingworth bars, Snafu Illingworth grips, which I managed to find with ODI ends, a box one headlock. If you're not familiar with what a headlock is, it's basically a great big aluminium assembly that goes through the fork all the way and basically pulls the stem onto the fork without using a star nut. It basically makes sure 1000% that your handlebars can never fall off the bike. They're also expensive and really beautiful, like to look at. Now I've got a box one lever with the titanium hardware. There's a lot of box parts on this bike, so I might get a little bit boring there. I've got a pink cable made by Blank. I've got a CNC miniature V-brake made in China. The box one caliper, I couldn't find one in blue, and I don't like the larger sort of longer V-brakes. They're very spongy. The shortened ones are really sort of snappy and responsive, which is amazing. Decided to replace the Mongoose seat clamp. Like I say, the logo had rubbed off. There's no way for me to put that back on there, so it would have just been a very heavy seat clamp. So I bought a blue one made by Hope. I've got an alloy post. Couldn't be particularly fussy because it's a strange size. I think it's 26 point something. So I just bought an alloy post and basically cut a lot of it off to make it lighter. The saddle is a modern solid carbon saddle with carbon rails. It weighs absolutely nothing. That's been custom painted with the years 1974 to 2024, 50 years on it. It's kind of like a Ghost. I've left the plain carbon, masked it, then put the chroma coat on, and then clear coated over the lot of it. Obviously you wouldn't want to put your arse on it. I've done that before. It used to be on my GT, and believe me, you don't want to do it. It's someone called it the ass hatchet on one of the American forums that I go on, and that pretty much sums it up. It will literally smash your arsehole to pieces. Now for the cranks, again, decided to go with Resto Modern. So they're 5-dev copy cranks. I didn't know about 5-dev. I just saw them on AliExpress and thought, wow, look, black cranks with pink and blue on them. I must have them. And then when I bought them, I did a bit of research, and it turns out that, yeah, they're knockoffs of a $600 crank set made by an American company called 5-dev. I didn't know that. To be honest with you, I don't care. Not going to ride the bike. I've got my GT if I want to go for a rip. I've got a USA to Euro bottom bracket shell thing that bolts in, and then obviously a dub bottom bracket, because that's what everything uses now. I think it's 31 millimeters, 28, something like that. I don't know. It came with the external shell bottom bracket, so it all just bolted up. I've put a race light. I think it's a 42, maybe a 44. No, it's a 40, and the reason why I did that is because when I had the wheels built, they had a small side of a flip-flop only. They didn't have both. So I couldn't put a regular size freewheel on there. I could only put a small one on. So I believe it's either 39 or 40, and it runs to sort of a 14 or 15, something like that. But again, doesn't matter. I'm not going to ride it. Now the wheel set, again, is box one. They're box one rims, laced, ironically, to Midschool sealed hubs. There's a front race hub. It's unbranded, don't care, it's sealed. That's all that matters to me. And then the rear one is a Pro Light hub. Like I say, race hub from the Midschool, but only has the small side of a flip-flop drive on it. So I had to get a smaller freewheel, which is a Dicta freewheel. Same what I always use. Really good freewheels, nothing wrong with them. Now for the tyres, I went through about 3 sets. I originally bought a set of tyres for it and thought, no, I want Midschool tyres. Modern tyres are all far too big. They look like clown shoes, which is fine on a very modern bike, but not on a Midschool bike. So I found a set, well, I thought they were a set of Maxxis tyres called Slick Willies, and I'd never heard of them before. So I bought them, and then I posted them on said group on Facebook, and someone told me that they were made for the rear of a race come trails bike, and then you would use a Max Daddy on the front. So I was like, oh man, like I now have to buy yet another tyre. But then I found a Max Daddy for £12 that was absolutely mint, that dates to about 2003. So yeah, it all worked out in the end, and I've still got the other Slick Willy, which I might move on or put on my Fat Boy or something. That'll come to the channel one day. But yeah, like I say, the wheels were, I had those made up, very cheap, made for up from dead stock. A guy that I deal with a lot on eBay had them and built them up for me, so really stoked with that. I've got a Gusset Moto X chain and a Beyond Components headset. Now, like I say, you will notice that these pictures come through in 3 parts. There'll be the frame itself, then there'll be a section about the Falcon bars, and then there will be a parts sort of montage. Feel free to pause if you want to have a look at anything, or just keep watching through. Now, like I say, this is basically double the length of any normal video I do. I'm going to sign out now, because this has all been done in one take. I'm going to go and have a cup of coffee. Have a wonderful Christmas, all of you. Stay safe and warm, and be well. And I will see you on the other side, literally just on the other side to talk about my road bikes, or rather half BMX, half road bikes. And then when the weather picks up again, I'll carry on with the studio conversion in the attic, and then I'll be able to finally move on and get the last of the videos of the Midschool bikes. So again, have a good Christmas. Stay safe.